Okay, up next we have Spectral Resonator. I think this is our first spectral effect, although we're going to have another one just after this as well. So spectral effects basically means that we have access to the pitch content of the sound coming into it. In most effects, we run the signal through the effect and then out, right? Which means we have access to the time and the volume because it's easy for any effect to figure out what the volume is and play with that and what the time is, things like delay and stuff like that. It's really hard for a computer to, on the fly, analyze the pitch content and then play around with it, right? That's a fairly new thing. So that's called spectral when it actually does that analyzing of the frequency content in real time while the sound's going through it. Um, so when you see a spectral thing, you know that basically you're no longer seeing, like in this one, look at the black box here. See the waveform? See, this isn't an EQ where we're seeing frequencies at the bottom and amplitude at the top. That's what we are used to seeing. But what we're seeing here is frequencies going this way and time going this way. So now we're seeing the frequency content on the vertical axis. It means it's a spectral effect. And it also means we can play around with that frequency content quite a bit. So with the spectral resonator, we have something that sounds pretty similar to our previous resonator. You'll see that one's here, but I turned it off. So now we're just on this. But what I find to be most interesting about spectral resonator is adjusting our frequency and perhaps even automating our frequency because you get some really wild effects with this. Listen. You know, it sounds like a really weird guitar that you've tuned the string down to be just dangling. We got some other settings here that we can play around with. Granular is going to kind of make this kind of 90s granulation sound. I always associate it with the 90s. But I just really like riding this frequency and playing around with this one. Otherwise, you know, it's a resonator, so it works similar to what we just saw, but because it's spectral, we have frequency and then harmonics above it. Another thing that's really fun with spectral resonator is bump up this unison a little bit. And you get a really fatter sound, essentially a chorus kind of a sound built in. So this effect, like all spectral effects, has a lot of possibilities to use correctly and to use incorrectly to make really cool sounds. Spectral effects are much more complicated, but have much more potential to do really wild things.